I never imagined that a single piece of candy, something so small and stupidly harmless looking, could flip my entire world upside down. Even now, thinking back on that strange pink wrapper sitting on the edge of our kitchen counter, I still can't decide whether it felt more like a warning or an invitation. My name is Daniel, and before everything happened, my life was simple enough. I worked in a modest accounting office, came home every evening to my wife, Hannah, and occasionally helped her grown daughter, Lily, who had moved back in with us while getting her graduate degree. She was 24, sharp-minded, charismatic, and always joking that I needed more color in my life. Maybe she was right. Maybe that's why I reached for the candy in the first place. It had been a long week, one of those stretches of days where everything feels gray and flat, and I remember walking into the kitchen expecting nothing more than the usual routine. But instead of the mail pile or the grocery list, there sat that lone piece of candy like someone had placed it there on purpose. Bright pink, glossy, swirled with tiny flecks of shimmer as if a bit of sunlight had gotten trapped inside. Beside it was a tiny scrap of paper, handwritten, in a script I didn't immediately recognize. It simply read, "Try me." For a moment, I assumed it belonged to Lily. She was always buying quirky novelty sweets from those odd little shops downtown, the kind that sold handmade earrings shaped like fruit and candies that claimed to taste like dreams. I chuckled under my breath, imagining her laughing later when she discovered I had actually eaten the thing. So I shrugged, picked it up, and unwrapped it. The scent that drifted out wasn't like normal candy. It wasn't fruity or sugary or minty. It was familiar, somehow, but in a way I couldn't place. A mixture of soft perfume, warm fabric, the faint trace of berry shampoo, and something almost like nostalgia. And for a reason I still can't fully explain, I put it in my mouth. At first, nothing happened. It tasted sweet, smooth, almost creamy, melting faster than normal candy should. I didn't think much of it. But then, somewhere beneath the ordinary tastes, something deeper stirred, like a ripple spreading through a still pond. My chest tightened slightly, not painfully, just noticeably. The air around me felt warmer, heavier, as if someone had draped a blanket over my shoulders without me noticing. I blinked a few times and grabbed the counter for balance. A thin vibration passed through my fingertips, up my arms, across my neck, and down my spine. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of my pulse tapping frantically in my throat. I remember whispering, "What the hell was that?" But the moment the words left my mouth, I realized my voice sounded lighter. Not dramatically different, but softened at the edges. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Hello?" The second time, it sounded more normal. Or, at least I convinced myself it did. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just the shock of eating something strange, maybe a bit of low blood sugar or exhaustion. That was easier to accept than the strange truth I felt beneath my skin. I splashed water on my face, telling myself everything would be fine once I sat down. But as I turned off the faucet, I caught a glimpse of myself in the window's reflection, and for a split second, I could have sworn something about me looked off. Not wrong, not frightening, just different. Softer. My jawline looked a touch smoother, my hair slightly fuller at the sides, like I had styled it without realizing. I stared longer, leaning close, and the reflection stared back with the same bewilderment. Then I blinked, and everything snapped back to normal. I jerked away from the window, with a cold rush of nerves skittering through me. I grabbed the pink wrapper still sitting on the counter and turned it over, expecting to find a label or clue. But it was blank. No brand. No ingredients. Nothing. I felt ridiculous, standing there in my own kitchen, heart pounding over a piece of candy. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that things like this didn't happen to people like me, that transformations and magical oddities only belonged in stories. But when I took a breath to steady myself, a faint scent rose from my own skin, the same perfume-like aroma that had seeped from the candy's wrapper. Familiar. Soft. A scent I recognized more clearly now. The scent Lily always wore. My stomach tightened. Why would I smell like her? I paced the kitchen, whispering to myself that this was stress, that scents lingered in houses, that reflections played tricks. Still, the uneasy tension wouldn't leave. And when Hannah got home shortly after, she noticed immediately. The moment she stepped inside, she paused, tilted her head, and looked at me with narrowed eyes, not suspicious exactly, but puzzled. "Something different about you," she said, setting her keys down slowly. Her voice wasn't accusing, just curious. I forced a laugh and shook my head. "Long day," I said. She accepted that with a half-smile, though her eyes lingered on me longer than usual. When Lily came home later, she froze in the doorway. For a brief moment, her expression flickered. Surprise, confusion, something else I couldn't quite read, before she masked it with a quick grin. "Whoa, Daniel, did you do something to your hair?" I ran a hand through it instinctively. "No, not really. Why? It just looks, I don't know, different. Kinda nice, though." I laughed awkwardly, brushing her comment off, but inside I felt that ripple again, that shifting weight inside me. Something was happening. Something real. And it wasn't slowing down. That night, long after Hannah went to bed, I stood in the bathroom staring at myself again. I didn't look wildly changed, but the subtle differences were unmistakable now that I was alone with them. My cheekbones seemed a little sharper, my skin smoother, my eyelashes a bit longer. Tiny things, but enough to unsettle me. Enough to make my pulse thump louder in my ears. I splashed more water on my face, gripping the sink as tightly as if it were the only thing keeping me grounded. "This isn't happening," I whispered. But when I lifted my head again, my reflection whispered back the truth in silence. It was happening. And I had no idea why. No idea what that pink candy was. No idea where it came from. No idea what I was becoming. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt that same soft vibration under my skin, spreading quietly like the beginning of a metamorphosis I couldn't escape. I woke the next morning with a strange heaviness in my chest, like anticipation wrapped in fear. And that was only the beginning of what would become the most confusing, surreal, and emotional journey of my life. A journey I never asked for. A journey that would slowly, unpredictably, and unexplainably turn me into someone who wasn't me at all. Not Daniel. Not the man I had always been. But someone else entirely. Someone who looked like my wife's daughter. And the terrifying part was, I wasn't sure if there was any way back. I woke the next morning feeling as if someone had gently shifted all the pieces of my body while I slept, almost like I'd been rearranged by an invisible set of hands. Nothing drastic, nothing cinematic or dramatic, but enough that when I sat up, I immediately knew something wasn't right. My breathing felt lighter, my chest rising in a way that felt subtly different. My arms felt softer, as though the muscle tone had smoothed overnight. Even my pajamas hung differently on me, the sleeves slipping a bit further down my wrists than they usually did. I rubbed my eyes and tried to shake off the strange sensation, telling myself I just hadn't slept well. But the moment I stepped into the bathroom and flicked on the light, the truth cornered me in the mirror. My face had changed again. Not drastically. Not so much that someone would scream at the sight of me. But the differences were undeniable. My jawline looked even smoother than the night before, rounding just slightly in a way that softened my whole expression. My eyebrows looked neater, subtly shaped despite me never touching them. My lips looked fuller, and my eyes seemed larger, framed by eyelashes that looked suspiciously darker and longer. I stared at my reflection, breathing slowly, trying to process the impossibility of it. And underneath the confusion, a thread of fear started tightening. This isn't normal. This isn't possible. I splashed more cold water on my face, hoping it would shock me out of whatever this was, but the reflection didn't change. I reached up to touch my cheek, half expecting it to feel like someone else's skin. But it still felt like me. Warm. Real. Alive. Just different. When I finally stepped out of the bathroom, Hannah was already in the kitchen making breakfast. She turned when she heard me enter, smiling softly. But the moment she really looked at me, her smile faltered. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, searching way, like she couldn't quite understand what she was seeing. "Morning," she said slowly. "You look tired. Are you okay?" Her eyes lingered on me, especially on my face. I cleared my throat and forced a casual tone. Just didn't sleep well. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. She watched me a moment longer before turning back to the stove, though every few seconds she glanced over again, as if making sure her eyes weren't playing tricks. And honestly, I didn't blame her. I barely recognized myself. I left for work early, needing space to think. But the drive there felt wrong too. My hands looked thinner on the steering wheel. My sleeves slipped over my wrists in a way that irritated me, because it wasn't normal. At red lights, I kept catching my reflection in the car window, watching the subtle changes like they were quietly growing while I wasn't paying attention. By the time I reached the office parking lot, I wasn't sure if I should even go inside. What if someone noticed? What was I supposed to say? Hey, sorry I look slightly different in a way I can't explain, must have been something I ate. But I forced myself to step out of the car and walk toward the building. Each step felt heavier than it should have, as if the air itself was weighing down on me. Strangely, though, nobody said anything for the first hour. I sat at my desk pretending to work, trying to focus on numbers and spreadsheets rather than the lingering tingling sensation in my arms. It wasn't until I went into the break room to make coffee that someone finally commented. A co-worker, Stephanie, looked up at me and tilted her head. New skincare routine? She asked with a smile. You're glowing today. I froze, nearly dropping the coffee mug in my hand. No. I just slept weird, maybe. She laughed, brushing it off. Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You look great. And she walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding against my ribs. Great? Why would she say great? It wasn't like me to glow. I was exhausted. My nerves were stretched thin. But somehow, to other people, I looked fine. Better than fine. And that scared me even more. By lunchtime, the strange sensations increased. My clothes felt looser in certain areas and tighter in others, and every breath I took felt like it shifted something inside me. I knew I couldn't stay at work. I packed my things and left early, telling my boss I felt sick. It wasn't a lie. The moment I got home, I heard footsteps upstairs, Lily's. She must have been working on her thesis again, always pacing while she thought. I hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, unsure whether I should tell her what was happening. But before I could decide, she came down, holding a stack of papers against her chest. She didn't see me at first, but when she finally did, she stopped mid-step. Her eyebrows lifted. Whoa. She stared, tilting her head like she was comparing me to someone else. Daniel, did you do something to your face? I swallowed. No. Why? You look different. Again. She walked down the remaining steps and stood in front of me, squinting a little. Your cheekbones look sharper? No, your face is slimmer. Or something. I forced a laugh, but it came out strained. Stress, maybe. She didn't look convinced. Okay, but you smell like my shampoo. I blinked. What? She leaned in slightly, sniffing the air near my shoulder. Yeah, that exact berry and vanilla scent. That's mine. Did you use it? No. I hadn't touched her shampoo. I hadn't even been in her bathroom. The realization struck me sharply. The scent wasn't lingering from the house. It was coming from me. I stepped back instinctively, shaking my head. Lily watched me carefully, her eyes narrowing with concern and curiosity. Daniel, did you eat something weird? The moment she said those words, a chill traveled down my spine. I hesitated before answering, but finally whispered, there was a piece of candy on the counter yesterday. Pink, with a little note. Her expression shifted instantly. Pink candy? Wait, was it wrapped in shiny foil, like metallic pink with swirls? I froze. Yes. Her face drained of color. Daniel, that wasn't supposed to be eaten. My heart dropped. What do you mean? She ran a hand through her hair, pacing a few steps away before turning back. It's something my friend gave me. A kind of novelty thing, I guess. It's not dangerous, I don't think, but she told me it causes changes. Temporary changes, but still. Changes like what? I asked, my voice trembling. She hesitated again, biting her lip. Like appearance. Identity. A kind of mimic candy. I stared at her, speechless. Mimic? As in, you mimic someone? She nodded slowly. Whatever scent or feeling you think of when you eat it influences what you transform into. But it only works if you actually swallow it. I felt the room tilt slightly. And you think I'm turning into who? Lily looked at me, her eyes softening with a kind of sympathetic horror. Into me, Daniel. You're turning into me. The silence after her words felt heavier than anything I'd ever felt. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. All the small changes suddenly made terrible, surreal sense. My softer jawline. My eyelashes. My scent. Everything. I wasn't becoming someone random. I was becoming Lily. I stepped back, shaking my head, whispering no, 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 no. There has to be some way to stop it. Lily swallowed hard. I don't know. I've never seen anyone actually take it. But we'll figure something out, I promise. But the way she looked at me, concerned, worried, unsure, told me she had no idea if that promise was true. And deep inside, neither did I. By nightfall, the changes had already begun again. Stronger. Faster. And I knew this was only the beginning. The candy wasn't done with me. Not even close. That night, I barely slept, not because I wasn't tired, but because every time I drifted toward sleep, another ripple of change would pulse through me and jolt me awake. It wasn't painful, just unsettling, like the feeling of your foot falling asleep but spreading across your entire body in slow waves. I sat up in bed more times than I could count, running my hands over my arms, my face, my hair, checking again and again if I still looked like myself or if some new piece of Lily's identity had attached itself to me while I wasn't looking. By 3 in the morning, I finally gave up on sleep and sat in the dark living room, trying to steady my breathing. The house felt impossibly quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes your thoughts seem louder. I hated how aware I had become of my own breathing, the soft inhale and exhale that sounded slightly higher pitched than I remembered. Even the way I swallowed felt different. Lighter. Smoother. It was as if every small function of my body had been subtly adjusted. When the first hint of dawn seeped through the blinds, I stood up and walked to the mirror by the hallway. I stared at my reflection in the dim light, bracing myself. And of course, there were more changes. My face looked younger somehow, not drastically, but enough to notice. The angles of my cheeks had shifted again, narrowing into the shape I had seen 1,000 times on Lily when she laughed, when she spoke, when she frowned over her textbooks. My hair had grown slightly overnight too, not longer by inches, but enough that it framed my face differently, with a softness that felt foreign to me. My shoulders looked slimmer. My neck looked more delicate. I touched the glass as if it would steady me, but my hand only trembled more. This isn't happening, I whispered to my reflection. But it was. And it wasn't stopping. I sat on the edge of the couch with my hands pressed over my face, trying to will myself into calm, when I heard soft footsteps on the stairs behind me. Daniel? Lily's voice drifted down, gentle and cautious. Are you awake? I lowered my hands and turned slightly. Yeah. Couldn't really sleep. She reached the bottom of the stairs, wearing a loose sweater and pajama pants, her hair tied in a messy bun. When she saw me clearly in the morning light, she froze. Oh my God. Daniel. Her voice wasn't judgmental or disgusted. It was confused, worried, quietly stunned. She walked slowly toward me, studying my face with wide eyes. It's getting faster, she said. I can see it. I didn't want to hear it spoken aloud. Hearing her confirm it made something sink in my chest like a stone. We need to figure out how long it lasts, she continued. The changes are supposed to fade eventually, but I don't know if this one is normal or... She trailed off, biting her lip. Or what? I asked. She hesitated. Or if it can get stuck. The room felt suddenly colder. Stuck? You mean permanent? She looked away. I don't know. The mimic candy was always a joke. A dare. Nobody actually eats it. I exhaled shakily, feeling the panic rising again. So, what do we do? Lily ran a hand through her hair, pacing the floor. I texted my friend last night, the one who gave me the candy. She hasn't answered yet, but when she wakes up, she should respond. She'll know more than I do. I nodded, though my hands were still shaking. Lily glanced at them, then took a cautious step closer. Daniel, you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out, okay? I looked at her, at the real Lily, standing in front of me with her familiar bright eyes and determined expression. But when I looked away and caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror behind her, the image staring back at me was like a distorted reflection of her. Not identical, not yet, but undeniably heading in that direction. And the strangest part was that some part of me could feel it happening, like a quiet shifting in the back of my mind. Not just physical, emotional, mental. There were moments when I felt memories flicker across my thoughts that weren't mine. Flashes of sensations that belonged to someone else. The warmth of sun on shoulders that weren't mine. The pressure of hairpins being fastened. The feel of earrings brushing against my neck. All things I had never experienced as Daniel. I rubbed my temples, trying to push them away. Are you feeling anything weird mentally? Lily suddenly asked, as if reading my thoughts. I hesitated. Maybe. Like small things. Memories? Not real ones. Just impressions. She grew visibly more concerned. That can happen. The candy's mimic effect sometimes blends personality traits a little bit. Nothing major. Nothing permanent. But still. She exhaled heavily. We need answers. Now. She paced again, stopping every few seconds to glance at me. Something in her expression changed then, softening, like compassion mixed with guilt. Daniel, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't brought that candy home, it's not your fault, I cut in quickly. I mean, who could have guessed I'd accidentally eat something that does this? She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Too slowly. I tried to distract myself, but every few minutes I'd catch sight of my reflection or feel another subtle shift, like my body was gradually adjusting itself into a shape it had already decided it would become. Around noon, the front door opened and Hannah walked in. She froze instantly when she saw me. Her eyes widened, confusion settling into her expression before she even spoke. Daniel, what happened to your face? Her voice cracked just slightly. I swallowed, unable to find the right words. Lily stepped in, placing herself gently between us. Mom, we need to talk. Hannah looked between us, her confusion deepening. Did you shave differently? Did you get a haircut? Did you? She stopped mid-sentence as she studied me more carefully. Her gaze moved over my features, one detail at a time, and I watched the moment she recognized it. Not consciously, but at some instinctive level. Her expression flickered with something like disbelief. And then something like fear. Lily stepped closer to her. Remember that weird candy I told you about? The one my friend gave me as a joke? Hannah nodded slowly. Well, Daniel ate it by accident. Hannah slowly turned her gaze to me again. The silence that followed was heavy. Too heavy. Finally she whispered, Daniel, is this why you smelled like perfume yesterday? My voice broke when I answered. Yes. Hannah covered her mouth with her hand, as if she couldn't process the sight of me. Daniel, you look like you're changing. And not just a little. I nodded helplessly. The doctor? She asked. What do we tell a doctor? That candy is turning me into your daughter? Hannah didn't argue. She sank onto the couch, staring at me with a mixture of fear and heartbreak. And then, almost in a whisper, she said something I didn't expect. I can hear her voice in you. My stomach clenched. What? Your voice, she said. It's starting to sound like hers. My throat tightened. And when I tried to answer, I heard it too. A faint softness. A familiar pitch. Like Lily's voice was slowly layering over mine. I didn't know whether to swallow the panic or let it overwhelm me. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The transformation wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. By evening, I knew part of me wouldn't look or sound like Daniel anymore. But the most frightening thought wasn't the physical changes. It was the growing doubt inside me, whether Daniel himself was slipping away piece by piece. And whether Lily, her voice, her expressions, her identity, was slowly filling the empty spaces left behind. And the night wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. By evening, The air in the house felt thick with worry. No one said it aloud, but we all knew the pace of the transformation was accelerating faster than anything any of us were ready for. I could feel it in every breath, in every twitch beneath my skin, in every soft shift of my muscles and shape. It was like sinking slowly into warm water, except instead of soothing me, it filled me with uncertainty and dread. If there had been a way to stop it, I would have grabbed it instantly. Instead, all we could do was wait, and waiting felt unbearable. Lily paced the living room again and again, checking her phone every few seconds. "Come on, answer," she muttered under her breath. Her friend still hadn't responded. I could hear every footstep she took more clearly than usual, as if my senses were tuning themselves in ways I didn't understand. The sounds of the house felt livelier, sharper, almost like the world around me was being subtly remixed. I sat on the couch, trying to keep my breathing steady. The fabric of my clothes felt unfamiliar on my skin, brushing against shapes that hadn't been there days earlier. My jeans fit oddly now, tight in some places and loose in others, and my t-shirt slipped off my shoulder in a way it never had before. Hannah sat across from me, her eyes flicking up to my face every few seconds before drifting away again, as if each glance challenged her to remain calm. She clutched a folded blanket in her hands, wringing it nervously. Every time I shifted, she took a sharper breath, the realization of each change hitting her in real time. Finally, Lily's phone buzzed. She grabbed it immediately, her eyes scanning the screen. Her expression changed from relief to confusion to dread so quickly it made my stomach sink.
"What?"
I asked, unable to keep the tremor out of my voice. She hesitated before answering. "My friend says, she says the candy wasn't supposed to be that strong. It was only meant to cause fun, surface-level mimicry for a couple of hours. It shouldn't be doing this." I stared at her. "Then why is it?" She shook her head helplessly. "She doesn't know. She says maybe the person who eats it influences the strength. If you have a strong association with someone or a strong emotional link, the effect can deepen." Hannah looked between us, confused. "Emotional link? What does that mean?" Lily swallowed. "The candy tries to match the eater to the person they think of most strongly. It's not always romantic or anything like that. It can be familiarity, attention, recognition, proximity. It chooses whoever the mind latches onto the clearest." Hannah slowly set the blanket down. "And Daniel thought of..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. My heart pounded. I hadn't consciously thought of Lily, but she had been everywhere that day. Her books, her scent, her handwriting, her voice drifting down the hallway. And worse than that, I had worried about her and been grateful for her help more times than I realized. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it didn't need more than that. Lily sat on the edge of the coffee table in front of me, her brow furrowed with concern. "Daniel, do you feel like you're losing yourself?" The question landed in my chest like a weight. I hesitated before answering. "Sometimes. Little things. Like I'll look at something and know it feels familiar, but not for me, familiar for you. Like I'm borrowing your memory somehow." She drew in a shaky breath. "That shouldn't happen unless the mimic level is really deep. Like, identity level deep." That didn't help the fear rising inside me. "So what do we do?" I asked. Lily stared at her phone again. "My friend says there's a way to slow it down or redirect it. Not reverse it completely. Just weaken it." "Redirect?" I repeated. "Redirect to what?"
"To no one," she said.
"The candy's mimic effect can be diluted if the person experiencing the transformation focuses intensely on themselves. Their memories, their life, their identity. The transformation feeds on mental imagery, so if you anchor yourself strongly enough, it might stop overriding you." "Anchor myself," I whispered. That sounded like something you'd read in a fantasy novel, not something that should apply to my real life. Hannah leaned forward. "Daniel, tell me something only you would say. Something that proves you're still you." Her eyes were pleading. I swallowed, trying to think, but the pressure of the moment scrambled my thoughts. I tried to speak, but the words didn't come easily. Memories flickered through my mind, some sharp, some blurry. I closed my eyes. "I remembered our honeymoon," I whispered. "The way the hotel room smelled like citrus and ocean air. how you got sunburned on the first day, and insisted it wasn't that bad, even though you were as red as a tomato. Hannah let out a shaky, relieved laugh and wiped her eyes.
Okay.
That's you. That's my Daniel. But the relief in her expression flickered with fear the moment she looked at my face again. I exhaled slowly. Lily paced again, then suddenly stopped.
Wait.
My friend sent something else. She scrolled quickly. She says if the mimic effect is this strong, Daniel needs something that grounds him physically too. Something that belongs only to him. Something that keeps him from slipping too far into the transformation. I looked down at my hands, which already looked thinner and more delicate than before. And if I don't do that? She hesitated. Then it could lock in.
Permanently.
The room fell silent. Permanently echoed in my mind like a distant alarm. I stood up too fast and stumbled. Lily reached out on reflex to steady me, and the instant her hand touched my arm, a wave of warmth rushed through my entire body. Not comforting warmth, transformative warmth. I jerked away instinctively, gasping. Don't touch me, I blurted. Her eyes widened in shock, and I immediately felt guilty. I'm sorry, I whispered.
I didn't mean that.
It's just when you touch me, it feels like the transformation gets stronger. Hannah inhaled sharply. So physical contact makes it worse? Lily's face paled. Maybe. The candy is made to mimic someone. Being near the person you're turning into might amplify it. Great, I muttered, pacing. This is great. Everything makes it worse. Lily held up her phone again. We need something of yours. Something deeply meaningful. Something that represents the life you've lived. Something that reminds you who you are. Hannah stood up suddenly, her expression determined. I know exactly what he needs. She hurried upstairs. Lily and I waited in tense silence until Hannah returned, holding a wooden box I hadn't seen in years. My chest tightened the moment I saw it. She placed it carefully in my hands.
Your father's watch, she said softly.
You inherited it when he passed away. You've always kept it safe. It's the most you thing I can think of. I ran my fingers over the carved lid, memories rising immediately. Memories only mine, not borrowed or blended with Lily's. And for the first time that day, I felt something inside me resist the shifting sensations. A flicker of anchoring. Lily watched closely. That's good.
Hold on to that.
Hard.
Focus on that.
Who you are. Who you've been. Daniel Evans, not me. I clutched the watch tightly in my hands. For a moment, my breathing steadied. But the relief didn't last. A sudden vertigo hit me so intensely that I staggered backwards into the wall. Lily rushed forward instinctively, stopping herself just before touching me. Daniel? What's happening? I pressed a hand to my forehead. I don't know. It feels like something's pulling. Like the transformation is fighting back. My vision blurred slightly. The room tilted. Lily's voice trembled. Daniel, you're changing right now. Your eyes, they're shifting color. Hannah gasped. No, 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 I whispered, gripping the watch even tighter as the world seemed to pulse around me.
Not now.
Not yet.
Please.
But the transformation wasn't listening. My legs gave out, and I sank to the floor, struggling to breathe as another wave washed over me, stronger than any before. And somewhere deep inside, I felt Daniel slipping, and Lily's identity rising, not just in my appearance, but in my reflection, in my voice, in my memories, in my mind. And the night was far from over. The moment my knees hit the floor, it felt like the world cinched inward. All the sounds in the house, Lily's quick breaths, Hannah whispering my name, the faint hum of the refrigerator, blurred together into a foggy echo. I clutched my father's watch as tightly as I could, but even that familiar weight seemed to float in my hands, slipping away from me like everything else I knew. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the dizziness to calm, but instead another wave of shifting warmth rippled from my chest outward, rolling through my shoulders, my neck, my face, my arms. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming. Almost too much to hold on to. Daniel, stay with us, Lily said, kneeling in front of me but keeping just enough distance so she wouldn't accidentally accelerate the transformation. Her voice was thick with panic. Focus on something real. Something that's you. Say something only you would say. I tried. I opened my mouth, but when I spoke, the voice that came out wasn't fully mine anymore. It was softer, higher, and uncomfortably close to Lily's. My name is... I started, but the rest got caught in my throat. I tried again, pressing my free hand hard against the floorboards, grounding myself in the familiar texture of the wood. My name is Daniel Evans. The moment the words left my mouth, the rippling heat slowed just a little. Lily let out a breath she'd been holding.
Good. Keep going.
Keep pulling yourself back. I forced myself to breathe steadily. I could feel my heartbeat racing, but I clung to the watch in my hand, feeling the engraving on the back with my thumb. My father's watch. My inheritance. My story. My life. Memories flooded in, real ones. My father teaching me how to fix the garage door.
My first job.
Walking nervously into the courthouse the day I married Hannah. The moment she said I do. All those memories were solid and warm and familiar. But underneath them, threading quietly like vines, were other memories. Not mine. Not unwanted exactly, but foreign. Borrowed. I could feel the sensation of Lily's favorite leather jacket on my shoulders, even though I'd never worn it. I could recall the smell of a specific cafe downtown that I knew she used to study in, even though I'd never once stepped foot inside it. I knew what it felt like to tie her hair back when it got in her face. I knew the frustration she had felt while rewriting her thesis introduction 3 times last semester. None of those memories belonged to me, and yet they sat in the back of my mind like they'd always been there. I shook my head as if I could scatter them loose. Daniel? Hannah's voice trembled as she crouched a few feet away. Please tell me you're still in there. I lifted my head toward her. I'm here, I said, even though my voice cracked mid-sentence, slipping upward into Lily's cadence. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't crying out of fear anymore. She was crying out of something deeper, a mixture of worry and helplessness, the kind of ache you feel when someone you love is going through something you can't fix. Lily pressed her hands together anxiously. My friend said there's one more thing we can try. Something stronger than memory anchoring. Something that might snap the transformation back before it gets too deep. I swallowed. What is it? Lily hesitated, glancing at Hannah before pulling her phone closer. She read the message silently, then looked up at me with a conflicted expression. You need to see something. Something that shocks your identity awake. Something undeniably tied to your life, not mine. What does that even mean? I asked, slowly pushing myself upright. The dizziness lingered, but loosened enough that I could sit without collapsing. Lily took a breath. She says the strongest grounding point someone can have is a recognition of their own image. A visual reminder of who they truly are. Something that forces the brain to stop mirroring and start defending. You mean a picture? I asked. Lily nodded. Not just a picture. A moment. Something meaningful. Something only you relate to. She hurried into the other room and returned with an old photo album. Not the small one we kept on the bookshelf, but the large one Hannah had put together for our 10th anniversary. The one full of pictures from our entire life together. Hannah's breath caught when she saw it. Lily placed it gently on the coffee table and opened it to the first page. My childhood photo. Me at age 6, missing my 2 front teeth, smiling proudly with a toy airplane. I stared at it. Something pulled sharply inside my chest. Recognition. My own life. I blinked several times, and the strange tug of Lily's borrowed memories loosened just a little. Lily quickly flipped to another page, me and my father building my first model rocket together. Then to another, me at my college graduation holding my diploma with a grin so big it made my cheeks ache just remembering it. Then to another, me and Hannah dancing at our wedding, laughing because we'd almost tripped over each other. Each picture hit me like a spark. That's me, I whispered, touching the plastic over one of the pages. That's who I am.
Good, Lily said. Keep going.
Keep pulling yourself back. We flipped through more pages. Trips we took, holidays we spent together, random moments that captured my smile, or my awkward posture, or my nervous laugh. These were my memories. These were my moments. These were my identity. But just when it seemed to be working, another heavy pulse spread through my body. I gripped the edge of the coffee table, gasping. No, 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 Lily stammered. It's fighting you again? I nodded sharply as my reflection in the nearby window blurred, shifting subtly. My nose narrowed. My face softened. Even my silhouette looked different. Daniel, look at me, Hannah said suddenly. Her voice was steady, firm, the way she spoke when she needed me to hear her. I lifted my eyes to her. Do you remember the promise you made to me the night before our wedding? She asked. I did. I remembered standing with her on the balcony, the city lights behind us, the air warm and still. I said I'd always come home to you, I whispered. Her eyes shined with tears.
Yes.
And you're still here. You're still my Daniel. I felt something tighten inside me, something strong, something familiar, something stubborn. And for a split second, the reshaping sensation slowed again. Then Lily grabbed one last photo, the one she knew mattered more than the rest. Me holding my newborn stepdaughter for the first time. Me holding Lily. My hands trembled as I stared at the picture. Lily leaned closer, her voice soft. This is the moment you became part of my life, she whispered. That's you. The real you. The one who helped raise me. The one who's been there since I was little. The one who isn't me. My breath hitched. Because this picture wasn't about transformation or mimicry or confusion. It was about responsibility, connection, love. The kind that couldn't be borrowed or overwritten. And for the first time that day, the shifting inside me froze completely. Just for a moment, but long enough to give me hope. Then, a sudden knock at the door shattered the silence. All three of us jumped. Hannah stared toward the front hallway. Who would come this late? Lily's phone buzzed. Her eyes widened as she read the message. It's her, she whispered. My friend. She's here. She says she brought something that might stop the transformation completely. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. Hannah looked at me, then at the door. Okay, she said, exhaling shakily. Let's get answers. But none of us knew the truth that waited on the other side of that door. None of us understood, yet, that stopping the transformation would come with a cost. And none of us were ready for what would happen next. The knock echoed through the hallway with a rhythm so deliberate it tightened all three of our chests at once. It wasn't the kind of knock you give when you're unsure or nervous. It was calm,
Certain.
almost like the person on the other side already knew exactly what was happening in the house and exactly why they were there. Lily wiped her palms on her jeans, then looked at me as if checking whether I was still myself. I nodded, though my pulse felt like it was ricocheting in my throat. She moved first, stepping carefully down the hallway, and Hannah followed a few steps behind her. I took one more steadying breath, clutching the photo album to my chest, then forced myself to stand and follow them. When Lily pulled the door open, a rush of cool evening air slipped inside. On the porch stood a woman in her early 20s with a nervous posture but a sharp, observant expression. She had a messenger bag slung over her shoulder, a stack of folders in her arms, and a look in her eyes that carried far more knowledge than her age suggested. You're the friend? Hannah asked cautiously.
The woman nodded.
Maya. Lily texted me everything. I'm so sorry I'm late, but I think I can help. Lily stepped aside quickly.
Come in.
The moment Maya entered, she scanned me from head to toe with the kind of focus that reminded me of a doctor examining a patient before saying anything definitive. Her eyes flicked to my face, my hands, the slight tremor in my posture, then to the photo album clutched in my grip. You're stabilizing, she said. I can see it. That's good. That means the transformation hasn't locked yet. Locked? I echoed, hearing the threat of panic in my own voice. Maya removed her messenger bag and set it gently on the coffee table. When she opened it, I expected potions or powders or something that matched the idea of candy that could rewrite someone's identity. Instead, she pulled out notebooks, scanned charts, a binder full of hand-drawn diagrams, and a small sealed metal tin. This isn't magic in the traditional sense, she said. It's mimicry chemistry, a kind of reactive compound that adjusts to the dominant identity around it. Like impressionable clay. If the person is emotionally vulnerable or deeply connected to someone nearby, the candy tries to mirror the strongest imprint. So that's why I'm becoming Lily?
I asked.
Maya nodded gently. Your bond with her is deep, even if you don't realize it. You helped raise her. You care about her. Her emotional presence imprinted on the compound before it finished dissolving in your system. Lily looked down, swallowing. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I gave her a strained smile. You didn't force me to eat it. But Maya shook her head. The candy isn't supposed to do this. It's only supposed to give a temporary playful mimic effect, voice, posture, maybe some facial expressions. But full transformation? That only happens when the compound reacts with something unstable. I frowned. Unstable in who? Me or the candy? Maya hesitated before answering. The candy. My friends and I have been studying it. We warned the vendor that a batch might be contaminated, but I guess some pieces already circulated. You must have gotten one of them. A cold knot formed in my stomach. So, how do we fix this? Maya tapped the metal tin gently. This is a reversal agent. It should stop the compound completely and pull your identity back into focus. But
what?
Hannah asked immediately. Maya took a breath. It only works if the person truly wants to revert. If there's any confusion, any emotional conflict, any doubt, the agent won't bind correctly. Lily's eyes widened. You mean he has to choose? But he's Daniel.
He knows who he is.
Maya shook her head slowly. The transformation isn't just physical. It's blending memories, emotions, instincts. Sometimes when that happens, the person feels torn between two selves. And if the agent senses that conflict, it won't complete the reversal. I felt the room tilt slightly. All day, Lily's memories had been pressing into me, subtle but undeniable. I didn't want them, but I couldn't pretend they weren't there. Maya placed the tin carefully in front of me. Only you can open it. The agent binds to your intention, not your touch. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart thudding in my chest. I thought about the photos. The life I had lived. The life I had built with Hannah. The years I had spent raising Lily. Those were mine. My identity. My truth. But then beneath that, I felt the gentle pull of Lily's memories again. Her voice in my head. Her laughter. Her fears. Her hopes. Not mine, but somehow now threaded between my own. I clenched my jaw tightly. Maya saw my struggle immediately. Daniel, listen to me. You are not losing yourself. You are being crowded. There's a difference. Your identity is stronger than you think. You just need to plant your intention clearly. Say out loud who you are. And mean it. I looked at Hannah. Her hands were shaking. But when she reached for mine, her grip was steady and warm. Her eyes didn't waver for a second. You're my husband, she whispered.
Come home to me, like you promised.
I turned to Lily. She wasn't crying, but her expression was tight with a pain I rarely saw in her. And yet, despite everything, she nodded. It's okay to come back, she said softly. I don't want you to disappear. I want you to stay you. Something inside me snapped back into place like a puzzle piece returning to its frame. I felt my posture straighten, my breath deepen, my hand steady. My name is Daniel Evans, I said. My voice wavered, but held. I am Daniel Evans. I'm Hannah's husband. I'm Lily's stepfather. And I'm not her. With that, I pressed my thumb to the top of the tin. It clicked open with a soft metallic pop. Inside was a small capsule filled with swirling silver liquid. It looked alive, like it was waiting for me. Maya exhaled in relief. Good. That means you're certain.
Take it.
It should work almost instantly. I lifted the capsule with trembling fingers. Hannah held my free hand. Lily stood beside me, as if anchoring the air around me. I swallowed the capsule. For a moment, nothing happened. And then, a surge of coolness shot through my chest, completely different from the earlier warmth. It spread outward, sweeping through my limbs, my face, my voice. The borrowed memories began to peel backward like pages turning in reverse. The tightness around my identity loosened. My reflection in the window sharpened, reshaping, shifting back toward the face I had known for decades. I gasped. Hannah covered her mouth in disbelief. Lily let out a shaky laugh. "It's working," Maya breathed. The coolness pulsed one last time, then eased. The room settled. I felt like myself. Exhausted, shaken, changed by the experience in ways I couldn't fully describe, but undeniably myself. Hannah threw her arms around me, half sobbing, half laughing. Lily hugged me from the other side, muttering thank goodness under her breath. Even Maya looked relieved as she closed her notebooks. "The candy's compound is neutralized now," she said gently. "You're safe. And the transformation won't come back." I nodded slowly, letting it sink in. Everything was quiet, peaceful,
Real.
finally myself again. Hours later, after Maya left and Lily fell asleep on the couch and the house settled into a rare, deep stillness, I sat beside Hannah in the dim glow of the living room lamp. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "You scared me," she murmured. "I know," I whispered back. "I scared myself too." She took my hand. "But you came home, just like you promised." I squeezed her fingers gently. Identity is a fragile thing, I realized. But resilience is stronger. Love is stronger. And no candy, pink or otherwise, could take that away from me. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to Over Channel.